Hello, everyone.
Hi,
My name is M9,
and I'm Nixie, and this
and this is Out of Character. Hello, welcome back to the show. It's episode 14 of Out of Character, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of role-playing.
We'd like to talk to players, server owners, modders, and have discussions about topics that are important to our community.
And one of those discussions, today we're going to be talking about character creation and everything that goes along with.
Which these days is not always as easy as it sounds, because character creation is one of those things that whatever you came up with one time is what you're going to be playing for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of gotta stick with it once you've done it.
And there's also the whole thing where, like, it just feels like everything's been done, right? Like,
Yes.
and you have to go in with the idea that, I mean, even if a story's been told or a character's already been made, you can make it your own. You can have your own story. And you never know who you're going to interact with that'll change things up, you know?
Or bringing old characters to life and having their story completely change because of who they interact with.
Yeah. So one of the main topics that we wanted to talk about here today, other than, you know, the basic character creation and things like that, is AI. And AI is very controversial, but
Yes.
there's so many good things that come out of it.
So, for example, I am not an artist. I'm never been an artist. I've always wanted to, and I can pretend sometimes. But there's always that point when you're playing a character. I'm sure you've had this too, where you really wish you could just draw them.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to see what they look like.
I get that itch, but, you know, I am an artist, although, you know, I don't draw very often, but I get that itch all the time. No matter who I'm playing, or if I'm interacting with somebody a lot.
See the scene. I want to see
Yeah,
this character.
I want to
So
draw
many. I can't draw for shit. So
it.
now that AI is out, and you can just type in words and they become a person,
Yeah,
it
so
makes me happy.
for me, there's a very strange place that I reside in the center of it, because I am a creative mind. I am a visual person. I love seeing things. And yet, as an artist, I am slightly threatened by AI,
Mm.
and I believe rightfully so, right? Because at some point, I was making money drawing portraits for people or like drawing characters for people. Um, Now anybody can just, you know, type in a prompt and get something that looks pretty close to their character.
Yeah. And that is, an issue of, because you have to start like promising that what you're making is real when you do make it
Mm-hmm.
now, which I've heard a lot of people like. The real art now is the video of someone actually making it, and less the artwork itself.
Yeah, and it's such a weird thing, because now even like Fiverr has like an AI services section. And it's not even like people hiding the fact that they're using AI. Like at this point,
I mean,
people
I'm kind
are
of happy that they're not hiding it, though,
right,
right?
exactly. No,
Like, I
I would,
wouldn't want to pay someone for art that they've made and then, like, end up finding out that it was just an
yeah,
AI generated
yeah.
thing.
There's also kind of a very, especially if you use like Midjourney, and I know that there's other ones that are popping up. Like I think there's one called Leonardo now that's coming up, and I believe that it's currently free. But um, I mean, they're all kind of free. It just depends on what you want. But
Mm.
the there's kind of a style that AI has, and you can almost tell when a picture is generated by AI. And with Midjourney, with every version that they come out with of the, you know, the AI system, they kind of changed their style a little bit. And just recently, I was voting, because they were letting paid members, you know, vote for changes on their new system. And so I was voting for images that I thought looked better. And the new system that's coming up, or the new update, they're going for like hyper realism.
Oh,
And
interesting.
But the cool thing is that you'll always be able to like revert back to certain styles. So like if you like the way that like I think it's version 4 right now, if you like the way that
Mhm.
version 4 is making images, you can ask the AI to make it in this style as opposed to
Which is the version that I'm using right now.
right. And I mean, let's get to the let's get into it, right? It is very convenient.
It
Not
is.
just for people that like what you said, you're not an artist, you don't see yourself as an artist, but you are a creative. And in
Yes.
your mind, you can't probably you can't put it down on paper or digital art or whatever, but you can create amazing things in your mind. And the the AI helps you put that or like make that, and that's kind of amazing.
So then what I do, what I use my creative flexing is fixing the AI image because they
Mm-hmm.
suck. But like, yeah, so you can. It's so hard because people have made real images that the AI is using. You know,
Right.
that's the part that makes me feel icky. It's because AI images are all clippings and fixings and changes to something someone's actually made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
But it is its
basically
own thing. It's just
learning.
a lot of people's things,
Yeah.
which is why it has problems with hands.
Yeah. Oh, voting on some of the new images for the new thing, almost all of the hands were perfectly like done, and
Oh,
it's scary because I was looking through some of these images that you're able to vote on, and basically what they're doing is that they're presenting you with two pictures every time, and I think what they're doing is getting an idea of what type of things to change if they need to be changed, right? So like
yeah.
according to like votes and stuff like that, then maybe some people like colors better this way or whatever better this way.
Hmm.
Um but the hyper realism ones, there was some that I couldn't even tell they were AI, like
Oh,
photographs, like not even illustrated art like what we kind of use most of the time,
we
but
going deep fake?
but it looks like photographs. Like somebody took an image of a person in the street, and that's what I'm seeing. Like,
I mean, Chat GPT is another one of those things.
yeah,
Uh,
I hate Chat GPT. Yeah, um,
because you can use it a lot of things what I'm seeing it used for and have used it myself for is coming up getting some broad details that you can
mm-hmm,
then kind of detail yourself into
right,
because the actual like details that stuff like chat gpt comes up with is pretty crap like or
yeah,
it's weirdly phrased or there's weird problems with it, but what you can do is you can use it to create an outline
mm-hmm,
or give you a broad strokes from a prompt that you can then use to simulate your writing, which you can use in character creation as well,
yeah,
which I just did today.
and so did I.
Came
Eh,
up with a character and with AI art and chat GPT background and went, I'm gonna play this.
yeah, in less than I would say 30 minutes, I had a background for me and my friend and an image that shows him and I both. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And Veronica, she said the Chat GPT. I recently kind of showed her like what Chat GPT was. She was so
Mhm.
curious, and how you can use it. I use Chat GPT almost on a daily basis.
Really?
Um, just
For like
because
what?
for for my personal work or the things that I'm working on, or it's in some things it literally has replaced Google. I'm like, give me a list of this, and ChatGPT is like, all right, here's a list.
That's crazy. I haven't got that point yet. I mostly use it for writing prompts
But the
because
thing is,
I
it's
like
like
to get
it's
some
kind of
practice with.
amazing, right? Let's be honest, it's amazing. The
It is.
I today I went in, I gave ChatGPT an idea of what backstory I wanted, and this thing spits out some ideas, and I'm like, okay, make it so that the brothers have some tension instead. And then ChatGPT is like, all right, let me rewrite what I just said with that detail. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is getting good. And then I'm like, okay, their parents' name is this. And then ChatGPT just rewrites everything, including the parents' names. So to me, it's I it's more of a tool, and I feel like that's what it needs to be. People need
Yes.
to understand that it is a tool, but there are people out there that are taking advantage of it. Let's be honest. There's people out there that are
There's always
getting.
gonna be that.
There's always going to be that with any kind of tool, right? There's
I was
people
gonna say,
out there
like, it
that are
doesn't really.
getting
It's
whole books and selling them on Amazon, books that don't really even make
yeah.
sense.
That's it. But that's like every new tool, every
Mm-hmm.
new thing that's used for a purpose is always going to be used for a less than honorable
Right.
purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many examples of it. First thing that pops in my head is like uh desktop sharing tools that
Oh
scammers
yeah.
use.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's used for something specific. Sharing your desktop so someone can help you with
For
something.
support, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then scammers come in and use it for, you're always going to get those people who use it for not what it was originally intended for. So
Right.
I feel like that's just a trend
Yeah, that's one of
for
those like it
any.
is what it is things. You
Yeah.
can only control what you use it for. You don't know like what the bad people out there use it for. But
But if you want to use it as a tool yourself, like
it's
use it
amazing.
as a tool.
If you go out there and like I said, you try to get a backstory, not just that, you're like, okay, give me an example of names. It gives you a list of names. And then for character creation, which is what we're talking about today,
Mhm.
as a tool, it's not going to do everything for you, but it will facilitate everything for you. It'll be a huge brainstorming session between you and ChatGPT until you are happy with the result. And I feel like that's awesome.
Yeah. Especially because roleplay can't be taken over by AI. The whole
Exactly.
point of roleplay is you're talking to other people as characters.
Yeah.
So, for at least our hobby specifically, it is a fantastic tool to get prompts, get story ideas, get character ideas, get art for your character ideas to then turn into something greater,
Yeah.
which is what your roleplay is.
And yeah, I've said this several times already, but it is amazing when you're using this tool to help you create, to help you brainstorm things. Ever since I started using ChatGPT, and this kind of sounds like I'm being sponsored by ChatGPT, but
Yeah,
ever
right.
since I
Hey,
started using
ChatGPT, you want us
ChatGPT,
to sponsor? Not spawn.
no, but ever since I started using ChatGPT, I
It does
haven't
sound like a
had
bad
it
infomercial.
does. It really does.
You're like, ever since I started using ChatGPT, my life has
My life
changed.
has completely changed for the better. But no, I haven't had like writer's block. I haven't had a creative block. I've been able to, if I'm like struggling with something, just spit out a thought into ChatGPT, and then it like comes back at me with things, and I'm like, shit, that's where I want it to go. Like it's just kind of like opening the door for like brainstorming, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But so give us an example of kind of like how you went through, and for the people that are here for the purpose of creating characters, what is it from like A to Z that they can do using AI or anything?
So when I start, the first thing that, specifically me, when I look at what system I'm using, because it's so important, what you're able to do physically in whatever game you're playing, in whatever tabletop system you're using, you need to look at the rules. You need to look at what's available. And you need to like, you have to look at what you're capable of doing as a character. Because say you want to play a cop. right? But you want to take it to Conan. You're gonna have a clash because there's not a lot of ways to be a cop in Conan. If you were to take that to GTA 5, you'd be fantastic, but if you do that in Conan, you're gonna find resistance.
Right.
Um, so the first thing you have to do is, what are you using? What game are you playing? What system are you looking at? Are you on tabletop? Are you in a game? And what can you do with your character creation
Right. What are the
in regards to that?
limitations?
What are your limitations? What are, if a server has skills, what skills do they offer? One of the first things I always do is look at what skills there are, because sometimes I basically make my character around that, play into the
Mm-hmm.
strengths of that class I choose.
Yeah.
Um like, okay, this class is a wizard and I want to play a wizard. So now I have a set goal for what kind of character I'm working on because I'm making a wizard.
Right.
So you always want to look at limitations first.
Yeah, and I think that that goes for almost any kind of RP that you're doing or that you're trying is looking at a class list or race, because in a lot of servers or
Yes.
games, your race and your class will determine the type of character you're making. I know that there is some servers out there that are not so adherent to the theme and you can do whatever the hell you want, but in some of the better ones, as in my preference, is that there's adherence to the theme. That
Yes.
there is a limitation to what your characters can do as to what you are, where you're from, and what you do.
M9 secretly throwing shade, guys. I just want to throw that out there. That was fantastic. Um, there was shade thrown
A
so hard
little
just
bit.
now. It was great.
Just a little.
But yeah, no, you have to look at what your limitations are first and foremost, because that will completely flavor where you go with your role play. And then once you know your limitations, you start looking into, that's where people start to twist.
Mm-hmm.
Um because some people want to get a name figured out, some people want to get a look figured out before they come up with a name. You kind of start looking at, some people want to figure out their backstory before they do either of those two things. Because that's where you can kind of start to grab things and pull them towards you and like look at it and then put it away and look at, I like to think of it as like you've got a table of raid with all of these options. You pick one up and you kind of look at it and go, I don't know about that one, and you pick a different one.
Right. Yeah. And I think to me also, you have to think about what you want to do, right? Like it's not just adherence to the theme, but when you know that there are restrictions to your class, to your race, think about something that you're going to enjoy, right? Like if I'm gonna play a bard or a barkeep or something like that, am I going to enjoy the grind that it takes for me to brew, drinks or or whatever? That's just an example, but are you going to enjoy what it is that you are going to have to RP or do in that role?
The mechanics,
Mm-hmm, exactly.
because that goes along with your limitations, because the mechanics of what you're able to do, like if I wanted to be a baker for a character and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna hand out food to people that I know, but you do it on GTA.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a hold of the food really just means running down to the store and buying a whole bunch and giving it out to people.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to it, but if I want to play baker, I want to dig into it. Or maybe it is what you want. You want to just go run around and hand out bottles of water or whatever.
Yeah.
But
But I think
yeah,
also,
you have to look at what you want to do.
yeah, there's the fact that you you have to think about the things you won't be able to do as well. So for example, if you want to RP this like shy and farmer girl that's never had any life experience, which is great if that's what you want to do, don't expect you to be taken seriously as a fighter you know,
Yeah.
because it's not your character. That's not to say that in RP you couldn't find somebody to train you or to, you know, a story that will take you there. But don't be like, okay, I need this weapon, I need all this armor because I'm going to go in this dungeon and fight. Why? You're a farmer. You know, it's like, what is the reason?
Where
Um,
did you learn it? How did your character get that knowledge?
right.
Because that's something that you have to think about when creating a character is why do you know what you know? What
Hmm.
led your character to learning those things? How did they become a baker? How did they become a farmer? How did they learn how to fight? All of these things will flavor your character's backstory, which is an important part of making a character. Because, as me and M9 have demonstrated when it comes to making backstory, sometimes you do it on the fly.
Right.
Sometimes you do it in the middle of role playing with somebody else, and then you just kind of have to stick with it.
There is a lot
Some
of improv.
people, some people write their entire backstories as
Hmm.
a 12-page document before ever setting foot in a character, and I couldn't do
I
that.
can't do that. I am in the middle of RP is my favorite way. Yeah. I always prefer, hey, we're gonna improv, we're gonna kind of go off each other, and then whatever happens is part of our story now. You know, like
There's
and Nixie
so
and
many
I,
times.
yeah, there's we are a perfect example of that where we kind of make a foundation of our characters. And then throughout, as we're having conversations or whatever, we're just kind of spitting out facts that now
We
are
created an entire kingdom
an entire
with
kingdom.
rules and history
Hmm.
and like culture in like a day of RP
Right.
talking about it.
Never even
It
discussed
be
at OOC. Oh,
We had
shot.
no idea of anything that this character. We knew that they were from a kingdom, and that's it.
Yep.
We didn't have anything determined about the parents or where we came from. Like I knew I was an urchin, a street urchin, and I knew he was a prince, and we were from a kingdom, and we
Yep.
knew the kingdom's name. And then we jumped into role play. And now I'm writing a book about this shit.
You are,
It's
yeah.
really fun.
And yeah,
Um,
and it's just as easy as being in conversation and being like, "No, my father's an asshole," and it's like, boom, that just happened. Never
yes.
before in the history of my
We
character
had
did I
no
even
idea.
know that I had daddy issues.
Literally in the middle of conversation, I found out that his dad was an asshole, and I went, "Yeah, he really is, isn't he? Do you remember that one time?" Because RP is just improv. It's yes
Hmm.
and.
It is for sure.
And when you are creating a character story, and you don't even have to be having someone who has a similar shared story. Sometimes you say something and go, I need to remember that in case it comes up again because that's now my backstory.
And sometimes it does. And sometimes it does come back up, and now you know that about your character.
Yeah. They're like, I just learned something new about my own character.
But in the process of creating a character, so like what Nixie said, backstory is very important. Whether your server that you're trying to play on requires a backstory, you know, in the application or not, I think everyone should take the time to write something about their character so that you can become familiar with the person you're playing.
Mm.
And
Just getting a small, like, even just less than a couple sentences.
yeah,
This is who my character is. This is why they learned what they learned. And this is maybe one or two things about them that I like.
yeah. And to go back to like Chat GPT, the you literally can go and say, hey, what kind of character can I play in a modern server? Or what type of character can I play in a medieval theme? And ChatGPT will not is not going to give you a character, but what you're going to be doing is building one based on suggestions. And that's where
Mhm.
this tool comes in handy and where it's so amazing because it won't ever let you get a creative block if you know what you're looking for. So it can tell you, hey, you can be a barkeep, you can be a soldier, you can be a farmer, and then you're like, okay, you know, what do farmers do in medieval times or whatever? And it'll
Yeah.
give you more examples, and then you're like, okay, give me some example of names, and ChatGPT will give you some names. And so you start building your character as you're having this conversation with an
It's
AI.
almost like role playing with the AI because you
Kind of.
start figuring stuff out by talking about it. Brainstorming, it's kind of just like having someone to talk to about your character without having to worry about someone using that in character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they're not going to role play with you.
Right, exactly.
But they are totally into the conversation 100%.
Yeah.
Because the people who you might be talking about your character might be people who are like, yeah, that's cool. You're like, oh, thanks, lovely.
It's really it's just, I keep using the word amazing because I can't think of anything else. It's very useful, and if used right, you can do some really creative stuff with it, and you can actually step out of your comfort zone a bit as well just by asking for suggestions. It'll give you things you might not have thought of, and then you're like, oh, that could be interesting to play, right? And you can
Mhm.
ask the AI to specify or to kind of break it down further, and you go from there and you build up something, and you can come up with something really cool. And then that's when you take it over to an art AI and try to figure out what your character looks like.
One of my favorite things was there's an AI that you can input a bunch of pictures
Mm-hmm.
into, and it pops out images from those pictures.
Yeah.
One of the ones I have on my phone is called Me Too, and it creates pictures based off of an image you give it.
Yeah. So I
So
think
I will take a
Leonardo does that.
screenshot of like my Conan's character
Yes.
and get the cutest pictures back and be like, I guess this is what my character looks
Yeah.
like.
So that's a perfect example, Nixie, because like Conan gives you some like you look good in Conan, right? It's not,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure that if you got some decent pictures and mixed them up with like live models or whatever, like let's say you could even make something good out of like ARC models,
Mm.
which will probably be
It's
difficult,
so
but
hard to do.
good luck. But my
Have
point
fun with that
is
one, dude.
that like you're able to train some of this AI, like what Nixie said. I know that Leonardo is doing that, where you can actually train a specific model, and then you can literally choose that model and say, give me pictures of this with this model, and it'll always or it'll try its best to kind of keep it looking like that person at all times, because you've trained it and provided, however many screenshots or whatever, to always try to recreate this character. And I think, Taylor, thank you for stopping by. And I think that is that's amazing, like an amazing way to move forward with AI.
I don't know if you can tell, guys, but we kind of like the use of AI, right? Just in
We
general.
do.
It does have that controversial part of it, but at the
Yeah,
same
I'm
time,
so
it's such
torn.
a great tool.
Like I would never use it. I would never use it in a way that is harmful to others.
Mhm.
I don't think I would ever. And if I,
It's important to specify that
mm-hmm,
it's AI.
yeah, like for me, I'll always use it for inspiration, and I'll always use it for personal use. But if I am doing anything like I'm selling services to anyone, I won't ever keep that a secret. I and I'll also do something that is personal, right? Like I'm working
Yeah.
on a game that I'll probably share more details at some point, but I'm using some AI art because drawing everything for me would literally take years. But I'm using
But
AI.
this way, it's quick.
Yeah, I'm using AI art, and it's for me, and I'm able to use it commercially because I pay for a commercial license. But
Mhm.
and that's perfectly fine. If I was to tell somebody, hey, I can make you a character or I can do this, and they want to pay me for that, I would want them to know that it's gonna be AI. Even if I
Yeah.
end up making changes to it myself, it will be AI generated or
Which inevitably you're probably gonna have to because
oh
it's
yeah.
not quite
Hmm.
there yet. But like, I made a token for a character in a tabletop game where I had to completely change her arms and hands because it gave me seven on one hand and the other one was melded into a toy thing it was holding. And I
So
went, no.
yeah, no, it can get really weird with the extra limbs.
Fingers are the worst. But Anyway, so going back to character creation though,
Yeah.
after you've got a backstory, okay, you got a name. What like there's still more that goes into character creation than just the basics. Character
Hmm.
name, backstory, limitations. Um like we've touched on how the improv of creating the character as you go, but you also have to kind of think of what the personality is going to be.
Right. For
Because you can
me,
give them a backstory to hell, but you don't know what they're going to do in their day
yeah,
to
I
day.
completely agree. I'd like to kind of hint at my character's personality and their backstory, but you also have to always think about where they're at today, mentally and emotionally. Why
Mm.
are they around? So, not just a backstory, which is kind of, what led up to now, but what what is happening now to your character? How is your character going to interact with people, right? Because I can have a backstory that I am the Grim Reaper, but if I retired, I am no longer the Grim Reaper. So, like, what is
Yeah.
my character doing with his life? And that's a
What
weird
is the Grim
example.
Reaper doing with their retirement?
That
It's
is
a
a
fun
really weird
character.
example, but it was for me to like drive the point across of just because something was my backstory doesn't mean that it's currently what's happening with my life.
Yes. And how are you going to incorporate that into everyday talking?
Hmm.
Because everyday talking is what you're going to be doing primarily.
Yeah.
You're going to be working on having conversations with people. Are you going to be a dick? Are you super nice? Are you shy? Are you very forward? Are you knowledgeable? There's so many, there's so many different adjectives that you can use
Yeah.
to describe your character, but it all comes down to in the moment, how do you respond? And my favorite thing to do after role play, like I've role played something, I will reflect on what I role played and try to
Hmm.
figure out why did my character do that?
Or how does this
What
affect my character?
how does this situation affect you? Where are you going to go with it moving forward? Is this going to change you in some way, because your character should never stay stagnant.
Right.
Just
We've
because
had
you
this
created
conversation
the
before,
character.
Nix.
Yeah, just
Where
because you created the character doesn't mean it needs to stay that way.
right, exactly. We've had this conversation before where like after roleplay or after some kind of intense story point, we're like, whoa, I wonder what the
But
hell's gonna happen now. And
not even just what's going to happen now,
mhm,
but looking back on it and going, why did I say that
right.
as my character? Because you get into this zone, right?
Hmm.
Like, it's people call it immersion, people make fun of it, but it is a zone where after you start to learn who your character is, you start doing things that you aren't really consciously deciding.
Hmm.
You're not deciding I'm going to be a dick right now. You just say things and that's part of your character.
Yeah.
So afterwards I like to stop and think, okay, but why? Why did my character say the things they did? Was there a purpose behind it that I was technically thinking, but not really thinking in the moment? Because that's going to flavor your role play as you go through and change over time and be affected by the role play itself.
Yeah, for sure. It There's a lot to think about and there's a lot to work through. But you can also keep it simple, right? You can keep it
Oh, yeah.
simple, give yourself something to work with, and then see what happens. But I think it's always important to what, like Nixie's saying, is to reflect on what has happened and what can happen. Because when you log out of a game, you disconnect from that, right? But you're like technically your character's still in that world.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is currently going through their minds? What is when they're sleeping? Like, what is happening with them while you're not playing them? Um,
I view that all part of character creation as well, just because
hmm.
it's character creation doesn't just end from the moment you start your character.
Oh, that is beautifully said because I
Because
completely agree.
it's you continue to create the character until you stop playing that character. It's how it is. I'm still creating story for characters I'm not playing anymore because I'm thinking, oh, where did they go? What are they doing right now? I'm going to maybe play them in a different server later at a different time.
Yeah.
And what did they do between those moments? I'm thinking back to characters I've played I have a character that I bring around every now and then that I started in 2009 when I was like doing forum roleplay. So, character creation never stops. It's
Yeah.
continuous. You are constantly doing it every moment you're role playing.
Yeah. So, like, I think, and I'm not gonna say summarize because we'll probably still have more to talk about, but to to kind of point out a few points that we touched on, you know, getting a backstory, thinking of your limitations, thinking of, not just only race restrictions, but class restrictions, all that will play a part of who you are as a person. You know, where did you grow up? What did you do? Who raised you? Why? What do you know? The things that you know.
Why did you leave?
Why did you leave? Yeah.
Big one.
And then, start thinking about where your character is now and why they're there and what are the things that they're doing and how they are as a person, how they will interact with other people. And that all that stuff is going to add one by one to create this new persona. And that is the character that you'll be playing and living out when you're logged into the game. So it is kind of important. Some people don't really put a lot of thought into their character,
Which,
but
that's a way of role playing too.
yeah, yeah.
Because making a really simple character with simple motivations can often lead to really fun role
Oh
play.
yeah. Yeah, it's like a blank slate. And that's okay
Yeah.
too, but you'll have to be good at improv if you do that type of thing. You have to be willing to bend slightly. When you have like a pre-established story and character and personality, you know how your character will react to certain things. When you're just in the moment and you're a blank slate, you'll have to decide then and there, will my character like this or not? And if you don't really know your character, you might just go with like an OOC feeling shot um of
Uh-huh.
of what it is that you think your character would do.
Yeah, because then I feel like those kind of characters often lead to blending
Mhm.
of real life personality and
Yep.
character personality, which can get
Yeah,
dangerous.
cuz you're reacting most of the time.
Yes. And some people do that. Some people have a really fun time doing that, but it can be dangerous to mix. Because then, what if someone doesn't like your character and they start being an asshole to your character because they don't like your character? But you've been role playing basically your own reactions.
Mhm.
So suddenly they don't like you.
Yeah. Now it's personal.
Now it's personal. And that's a problem because you don't ever want it to be personal. It should always be your character and you. Because once you mix, you start taking things personally,
Yeah.
which is a big problem the roleplay community tends to have.
Yeah, and it's funny
People play
because
themselves.
that kind of goes both ways, Nix, and you can chime in on this a bit, but when you have somebody that is playing themselves, or maybe they're playing a different character, but they have a tendency of reverting into themselves, because that
Mhm.
happens as well. The and I think a lot of the times you end up putting people in an awkward spot as well, because like if it's me and I don't like your character, but I know that you're just being you. And sometimes I react accordingly, but you completely forget that you're in character.
Mhm.
And then you want to take it out of character. God damn.
Out of, we're just gonna get drunk.
When you want to take it out of character, but then now you feel offended, right? But it wasn't my problem. I am reacting to your character in character, just because to
My
you,
character is responding to you,
yeah.
but your character is you. But you're taking what I'm doing as my character as out of character talking to you
And
actually.
sometimes it makes it a bit awkward for the other person too. Like for me, it's a bit awkward because then I have to try to not offend you because I know you're going to take it personal because you're
Yes.
being you. And
Yes.
and there's times that I have to kind of sugarcoat it or me bend my character to you so that I don't offend you, but it's not my problem, you know?
It's also not what my character would do, which
Exactly.
gets really like frustrating when you get put into a position where you, as your character, have to change what your character would do to stop the out of character person
Mhm.
from being upset.
So that's kind of why you have to think about these even if you want to start as a blank slate personality wise, you do have to think about certain things that you can and can't do as whatever character because
Mm,
people are going to have certain reactions to you doing something. If you are a lowlife and you are disrespectful to royalty, you chose that. And people are
yeah,
going to react accordingly not because you are playing yourself, but because you were out of place. Your character was out
yeah,
of place. And you can't take it and a lot of people will. A lot of people will take it as salt and be like, "Oh, this person thinks that they're the main character in the server." No, they're playing a noble or royalty and you're playing uh, you know, a street rat. It's it's
you're
completely
playing a 2023 person in a medieval server with kings, and you just talk to them like a Gen Zer.
right. Right.
Let's put it as weirdly normalized as possible.
Yeah, because like,
A
let's think
kid
about
just
like,
talked to a king from the medieval times from today.
yeah,
Oh, that wouldn't go well.
think about like I,
You'd
you
get
know how many
beheaded.
times I've heard people say "hold your tongue" or like or calling women the
Yeah.
c word and in medieval settings, but that's perfectly fine for that setting, like Game of Thrones, and telling somebody to hold their tongue and then people will get offended like why is this person talking to me like that and it's because that person is a noble and you're not. It's like it has nothing to do with you out of character. So just going back and not ranting as much, you have to
What?
know not just your limitations and restrictions, but you have to know the setting that you're putting yourself into.
Mm,
At least that much if you want to be an open, open, um, what is the
an
word?
open character.
Yeah.
Personality. Yeah, it's just there's so many things to think about, but really what it comes down to is know your limitations, figure out name, backstory, and I feel like there's a third one. Look, I guess, kind of goes with that.
Look.
Um, where you sorry, there's noise, and I was like, what? Um, and you put that all together, and once you start role playing, you really get to dig into the details and have fun with it.
Yeah. Fill in the gaps
Yeah,
with made up stories, made up memories, and
made up kingdoms and everyone's personalities within
yeah.
those kingdoms.
And you'll notice how your character will start developing because like when Nixie said and it's probably one of my favorite quotes in all 14 episodes, you're not done creating your character after you've created your character. It's just you're
Mm.
continuously changing, evolving, and that's
Character creation doesn't end when you start your character, I think is what I said, or
mhm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically just you're always creating. The whole thing is creation. And as we kind of mentioned at the beginning of the episode, AI can help you with it.
AI can be so helpful. So helpful.
Nowadays, especially, I really wish I had had it in the past, honestly.
I know.
Being able to create these scenes that I love or character looks beyond what you could do in a game.
Yeah.
Just so cool.
It's funny because the we kind of started with Nixie writing the story for our previous characters because I sent her a generated picture of her character
Of
when my
my
character
character, which is a baby.
yeah when they first ran into each other as teenagers.
With a little like clip of what he like a little short story of
Yeah.
them meeting, and I went, "This is amazing." So I wrote a lot.
Yeah. So that inspired her to keep writing, and I
And I
loved
made
reading
the
it.
I brought back to I sent back to him the sorry, um, a response of the same scene from my character's point of view,
Hmm. Yeah.
not the
And
whole thing, because there's a
and
lot leading up to that.
and it was awesome, and it's because of that, like because I wanted to see what she would look like in that scene. I wanted to see like the young version of my prince stepping out of his, carriage and being like, the fuck. And
Who the fuck just stopped my carriage? Oh
why?
my god.
Oh my god.
The characters were so cute.
And
And like I said, I'm literally turning that clip and that little AI generated picture. I'm working on a book, guys. Like, I'm working
mhm,
on it right now. Like,
yeah,
I've actually been writing it. It's really fun, and it all stems from an AI picture and a little snip.
that
Like,
we used as a tool, not,
uh,
and whenever she feels like she's needs to brainstorm something out, she can use ChatGPT, and it'll give her some ideas. And it's not gonna say that it'll write the book for her, but I am always
when I get
so
stuck.
pleasantly surprised with me saying, "Hey, can you just like give me some ideas about blank?" And it spits out suggestions for me, and I'm like, that is exactly what I was trying to think of, and I just and I was just blocked. So it it's so helpful. I suggest everybody check it out, especially for character creation, like what we've been talking about. If you're a role player, give it a shot. Ask it a couple of questions. Give it some information about the character you want to play, and see what it comes up with, and then go back and forth and change a couple of details. And I guarantee you that by the end of it, you'll be happy with what you'll come up with.
And then you get to have the real fun, which
Hmm.
is actually playing that
Which is
character
being the character.
and getting to interact with people as this character that you've spent a fair amount of time working on, which is always
Hmm.
really satisfying as well. When you
Yeah.
put a lot of effort into something and see something come out of it.
So you know what's funny? Before we end the show, we talked about the AI art, right? And how
Uh-huh.
it's a little weird that it's taking like snips and pieces from different art and kind of meshing it all up together, but doing its own thing because it's all original art.
Yeah.
It's just referencing others, right?
Mhm.
The before, let's be honest, what we did is we all Googled pictures
And just
and
use
used
them
them as
straight.
space claims, right?
Yeah.
So we were literally taking people's artwork and claiming that to be our character. So
But now we get something original.
yeah, now we got something original, right? It might be inspired by certain art, art styles or whatever, but it's original, and we're not stealing that same image from somebody else with no credit at all,
I mean, yeah,
and it's more
whoever kept the
personalized.
credit. Some people, most of the time, if you're making like a picture, you just crop out the part that has a
Yeah. Yeah, most of the
signature.
signatures are like screwed up anyway.
Oh yeah, they have like the squiggles in the corner.
Yeah.
But that's just because every art has signatures in the same spot. So it's
So
like this is a
it
picture
just made
that's
a
part of the
blend of
picture.
signatures. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No. But
But
but yeah.
yeah, we're actually getting something original out of something other people have put a lot of effort into, but making something new with it.
Yeah, and it's more personalized, and you don't have to feel bad about using somebody's exact artwork. So for
Hmm.
like this, for our purposes, I think that this is even better for us.
I feel like AI art, the role play community is a great place for it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
There's a lot of communities that you wouldn't want to see that in, like art competitions or anything like that.
Oh yeah,
But in a role play community where you're using it basically just as a picture and
yeah,
helping you find a character that you're going to expand upon later, like it's a great tool for us in
yeah.
this community.
And there's only so much AI can do, right? If you want a character and you told AI, like Mid Journey, that he has a scar on his right eye, but it's, he's blind out of that eye, it's going to be the more specific you get, it'll try, but it's never going to be exact. So there's still room for you to take an image, find an artist, and be like, hey, can you make this look exactly like my character? And then,
Mhm.
like, you're not eliminating, you're not getting rid of, like, the world is changing. We got to change with it. And as an artist, I acknowledge that AI is here to stay. So
Yes, it
we have
is.
to change with it and use it to our advantage.
I agree. And I think it can be used for some really cool things.
It can. Definitely can.
And I'm already excited for my next character that I start
I'm just probably going to make like a backlog of characters
making.
just to
And this one I'll
experiment.
play in like 3 years when I finally am done with this one. And
Hmm.
you just pick and choose which one you choose. You
But I'm
mean?
telling you, I worked on that backstory earlier today. I sent it to my friend, and he was like, "This is amazing." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I literally, just put some detail here and there,
I
and
spent
refined
maybe
it.
10 minutes
Yeah,
making mine.
yeah.
Like,
I basically just
I
refined
took a
it a
while.
couple times.
Yeah, I had to redo like prompt a few times.
Yeah.
Turns out when you don't put the gender, it assumes male.
Oh boy, we're not gonna go there. We're canceling AI for assuming gender.
I literally put a prompt in, didn't put female, and got all male pictures back, and I was like, hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the gender part is pretty important to specify whenever I'm coming up with art. But
Yeah,
Nixie, do you
but
have
yeah.
any other final points to get through to character creation, whether it's
Um,
AI oriented or not?
use it to be creative
Hmm.
because creativity doesn't mean it comes directly from your head. Sometimes it takes brainstorming, working on it, perfecting it, and then presenting it. It doesn't have to
Hmm.
be the first thing you think of, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated or overly simple. Have fun with it and make something new because that's something we all are looking for in the role play community.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
AI art can really help to fine tune things to make interest, not AI art, but just AI in general,
AI in general, yeah.
makes it so much easier and helpful to fine tune details to make something no one's ever seen before.
Exactly. Don't be afraid of asking for suggestions instead of giving it information.
Mm-hmm.
Be surprised. You'll be pleasantly surprised with suggestions that it'll give you, and be willing to bend a little bit and be like, okay, I never tried something like that before. Let's dive deeper into that. And just don't be afraid to create. Use it as the tool that it is, not as a
Don't be shady.
yeah. Don't use it as a crutch.
Yes.
Use it as a tool.
Yes.
And I think that it'll surprise you, especially when it comes to our world of role playing and character creation.
Yeah, I think we've made some good points. I'm gonna type up some of our tips and tricks to throw into our Discord.
Hell yes.
Which now is the point where I get to plug that because it's my favorite part to do because we've worked really hard on this Discord,
So
guys.
proud of it.
We're so proud of it. We've got a Discord now. We have it in the link and everything. If you're on the Twitch right now, it just got posted on our link tree. We have it goes up on YouTube. We're gonna start trying to be a little bit more consistent with our scheduling on
Yep.
when things go up. So as you can tell, live show has changed to Wednesdays. We're gonna try and get everything on our streaming platforms by Friday. So if you can't make the live stream, check it on the our live stream or the podcasts on
Yeah. You'll have
whatever
all
you
weekend to
listen
do
to.
so on YouTube or any kind of podcasting platform. So, guys,
And we have a Twitter. Don't
we
forget the
do.
Twitter. I've been posting on the Twitter. I'm going to start putting up polls and stuff for people to interact with. So
Yeah.
please follow it. We only have 4 followers, and 2 of them are us.
Yeah. Yeah. Please
Please,
follow
even if you
Twitter.
don't use Twitter, just go follow it real
I'm not super
fast.
active
Thank
on
you.
Twitter, but also there are polls. If on the podcast, I actually put a poll. I think it only shows up on Spotify. I'm not
It's
sure,
Spotify only, yeah.
but if you listen to us on Spotify, give that a check and vote, and check us out in anywhere else. Our link tree will actually show you
Including YouTube.
any single place that you can listen to us, and it is all for your
Our
convenience.
personal Twitches
Right.
and stuff like that is also on there. So just got to plug it because we need the look throughs, guys. It'll help the podcast a lot, even if all
For
you're doing
sure.
is liking the YouTube video or tweeting at the Twitter.
And we have
So,
a lot of upcoming plans, so
oh my god, we
stick
do,
with us, and and we'll work
guys.
through all of this together.
There's so much we're excited to start bringing into the
Yes,
podcast. We have so many ideas and plans for what we're doing and how we want to do it and things to do once we start expanding. So it's going to be exciting as time goes on.
it's going to be so exciting, and we hope that you guys come with us on this adventure.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.